Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of DoD Cyber, Digesting Key Insights from TechNet IndoPac 2024. I'm Carla Hage, the Senior Growth Marketing Manager at ElastiFlow, and I'm really thrilled to have you all here. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. So if you have any questions, please make sure to write them in the Q&A segment, and we'll make sure to answer them at the very end. And this session is being recorded, and you will be receiving like an email at the end with the recording, along with Nathan and Frank's contact information in case you have any additional questions or you would like to reach out to them. Today's session is going to be an open conversation. We will also share a few videos to highlight key insights. And at the end, please make sure to take our survey. We really value your input and insights to improve our future sessions. Now, I am excited to introduce our speaker. They are experts in DoD cyber, and they both bring a wealth of knowledge and a genuine passion for this topic. We have with us Nathan Stacy, DoD Solution Architect, Senior Manager at Elastic, and Frank Monastero, Director of Business Development, OEM, and Partnerships at ElastiFlow. With that, I'll hand it over to Nathan and Frank. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. Great to see everyone. So I've been doing this podcast for a lot of people on our team, but we're excited to have ElastiFlow on this as well. ElastiFlow and Elastic, we have a fantastic relationship, and they are able to bring a lot of data to us. Elastic is a data place, a place to store data, and ElastiFlow brings the data. But Frank and I have been in the DoD for a very long time, and we've been thinking about a good way to what we would want in a podcast. And there's a lot of conferences out there. There just are. And we thought about how it's hard to go through all of the sessions, every single one. And so what we have today is we're going to have we've gone through the IndoPac sessions. We have a couple clips from them, from very key moments of what we thought were very important to how they're moving towards what they're moving towards in the Indo-Pacific region. But yeah, happy to start talking with everyone. Frank, why don't you introduce yourself and where you come from, what's your background with DoD, and then you can start talking about why IndoPac, why this is an important conference, and why Hawaii in general is an important conference.
That's great. Thanks, Nathan, and thanks, Carla. I appreciate it. Yeah, again, I'm Frank Monastero, and I work for ElastiFlow, where my primary role is really to, in fact, find value-added partnerships that we can bring our data collection capabilities to and really look to deliver better outcomes. The relationship with Elastic has been amazing, both in terms of the federal government as well as commercial. My background, I've been involved with generally infrastructure and compute, going back as far as the late 80s, actually. And then more recently, of course, with software companies like ElastiFlow. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. And what I really thought when I thought about the IndoPac conference itself, it was in fact always pivotal for a defense conference because, the people that ended up going to this conference all had a reason to be there. A lot of times you had to kind of really go through a lot of hoops to get justification from your company to be at this conference, given that it was in vacation paradise and people thought it was a boondoggle, but it really wasn't. It was a place for serious people to get together and exchange ideas. And to some degree, I think it was good that it was hard to justify, because it really brought together some of the best minds, and you were kind of off cycle in terms of your time zone. So you were out there really, really exchanging ideas, really getting into some of these sessions. And I thought this one was really, really well done.
I mean, you make a great point. Every year, so I manage a team, and every year we go to a lot of conferences. This is the one conference every single year that we get a lot of executive overhead looking at it, and they're like, you have X number of people going. Nope, reduce that by 50%. Like every year. I know it's going to
Right.
happen every single year. So yeah, no other conference gets that over. So you're very true. So the people who are there need to be there from
Yeah,
every
no
company.
question about it. It's an important one.
So
Yeah.
tell me, Frank, I think when you and I were talking earlier, you had a really good description. Like, why is Hawaii important to DoD?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think as you look at it, Hawaii as a, island chain, um, sits literally in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And, it is in fact just so pivotal, um, geographically, as well as in terms of commercial trade. Um, we've kept the Pacific safe and the shipping channels open from, our fleet, our Pacific fleet in Hawaii and San Diego for, half a century. And of course, it's really important now strategically for those same reasons, but also because, there's a new world power that has emerged over the last 25 years in China. And, that makes, I think, this conference more pivotal than it's ever been, because effectively that's going to be, in a sense, both for the fleet as well as for all of our forces. It's Hawaii is pivotal in the sense that, it's going to be the front line in a sense. So I think it's really important for this conference and the timing of this conference.
Yeah, adding to that, Hawaii is far from Japan. I mean, it's as far from Japan as it is from the United States. But it is our state that's closest to that region. We have a lot of great partners. Japan, we've had a fantastic relationship with them ever since World War II. Philippines, we're starting to create a new military base in the Philippines. Australia obviously is a fantastic partner, but I think Australia is a perfect example. Like, it's easy for me in my Americocentric mind to say, "Oh, Australia, close to China." No, it's really far away. I mean, basically, it takes 5 hour flight to get to any of these places or more. And so yes, we have these great relationships. Hawaii, though, is a state, and uh, I think of, I mean, it's a horrible discussion, but Pearl Harbor, like you brought up how we consider Hawaii as a place, a resort place, basically, and during Pearl Harbor, there were people that were on vacation on that island while that was happening. And it's a great example of the incredible value from a DoD perspective that was. Japan obviously knew the value that it's also a paradise place as well at the same time.
Yeah, no question. And of course, you can't leave out the fact that the people there are just amazing. I mean, um, the culture that they've maintained and their dedication to all things um, that, actually add to our, culture here in the United States. I mean, um, they're amazing hosts when you visit. And as you go deeper, when you get involved in a conference like this, you recognize just how dedicated they are to being a productive, just, you know, cohort to the United States. It's really amazing the people that are there.
Tell me, let's talk about AFCEA and TechNet. Where, why AFCEA, why TechNet?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I think it's interesting because AFCEA has these chapters that are built around the world. And AFCEA International um, created a theme, or it might have even adopted one of the chapter's themes of having these TechNet conferences. And they recognized that they needed to be at a certain level. So AFCEA International, which is headquartered here in Virginia and led by General Susan Lawrence, who was CIO of the Army, um, they bring together these conferences which have, very poignant topics that the military is focused on, whether it's, bringing up awareness of a challenge that we're facing, whether it's driving topics to drive then innovation and solutions around those topics. These TechNet sessions are really important, I think, because it gives the government, the Defense Department, as well as industry, time to communicate. And there's both structured, components, all the things you and I, Nathan, have spent going through this week, watching all the talks and all the sessions, but it also gives you time for unstructured. And those are the times where a lot of times something might be worked out that was unplanned. It's just an exchange of two people who have been looking to get together. You mentioned Australia, for example. Our allies from Japan, Australia, South Korea all come in for these conferences, and the exchanges that take place are really just extraordinary. And I think they drive innovation, they drive communication, and they drive, a tighter bond.
And it's interesting, yeah. I mean, we could dive into this a long time, and we're going to do several of these, and I think it's good to define what is FCA and what is TechNet at least once. Um, and we have the ability to interact differently than we did when this started 39 years ago. Drastically different ways to interact than back then. But there's still value. There's still value of being in front of people. There just is. That will probably always be that way. So yeah. All right. Let's start getting into to prep for the first clip, which is going to be the Vice Admiral Blake Converse, who started off the conference. Uh, Talk to me about NATO. Talk to me about Asia. How do well let's we have the clip up. Let's this is a great question that was asked to him about what is the purpose of the Navy in Hawaii, and then from there we'll talk about how it's different from NATO and what that means and what our adversary, why Navy is so important compared to our adversary. We'll talk about those. But let's play this
Sure.
clip. This is from the very first opening keynote. And we have another clip from him, but I think this is a good way to describe the importance of Hawaii to that region.
Perfect.
What is the U.S. Pacific Fleet's role in future major combat operations in the Indo-Pacific?
So we are ordered as the Theater Joint Force Maritime Component Commander by IndoPACOM to be always ready to stand up in a crisis or in high-end conflict as a joint task force and command and control joint forces. And we exercise that in multiple events every year. It's become more exigent recently, and in the last several joint and international exercises, we have served as PAC Fleet as the Joint Task Force Commander in the primary combat area of operation.
All right, so there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah.
We'll go through a couple of the topics here. So I'll start with the end where he was talking about how the Navy is the leader of the partner organization of all of the other services, Air Force. Like, if you're gonna go do something in Asia, you call that man right there, right? And you go from there. Why is that, Frank? Why do you think you would go straight to that vice admiral.
Yeah, great, Nathan. I think it's important, right, to, you showed the map of Hawaii, right? And it is completely surrounded by water. We call these theaters of operation, right? And so IndoPac, and that's the name of this conference, this FCA conference is the IndoPac TechNet conference. Effectively, you have about 52% of the globe's surface area that is that IndoPac is responsible for defending and
It's
leading, if
huge.
you will. It's massive, right?
Process that. Yeah.
52% of
Hawaii,
the
a
Earth's
single
surface.
state, over 50% of the world. Anyway,
And
yeah.
of course, that's all, most of that is ocean, right? As is most of the globe. But effectively, even a greater percentage, as we look at this theater, is ocean. It's the whole Pacific, portions of the Indian Ocean and other areas. The China Sea, as we have a lot of focus in that area, and just the trade and the importance of commerce and those things are just so important. But you asked a key question, and I think a lot of us, just because of all the movies, the people we knew that were involved in World War II, and all the news lately about NATO and Europe. Europe is a different scenario, right? That's 26 countries that are all bordering one another, right? They work with one another every day because they're interdependent. They're now the EU, right? This is a different set of interested parties, right? So they're all figuring out what their places in the world, right? They're sort of a different level in terms of where they are economically and even in terms of their governments. They're changing a lot. You look at India. India is really coming about, and both their government, their infrastructure, trade, culture, everything. And so there's a big contrast, if you will, between the NATO alliance that we work with and the allies that we have in the Pacific. So you asked, well, gee, this fleet, the person who runs the Navy, they run this theater because it's mostly ocean. And their job is certainly as much diplomacy and helping to drive a positive culture as it is the defense elements that leader has responsibility for. And of course, those two are in balance, right? So that's who you go to. Anytime I've met someone in that kind of a role, I'm always amazed at how steep they are in the culture, not just again with our allies, but likewise there locally in Hawaii. They're usually just amazing people that are great, uh, in terms of diplomacy.
I thank you for that. He going back to that quote, connecting what you said to the next thing I want to do, which is China. He kind of alluded to it. It was constant in the conference. China is the concern right now. Uh, they announced that I don't think I have it in any of the clips, but it the Z I can't remember who the Chinese leader is,
Yeah.
uh, but
Xi
he said
Jinping. Yeah,
be prepared to go to war by 2027. That's what he has said. That's what he has said to his party.
that's right.
And he, the vice admiral more or less referred to that right there. And so I think so we have to consider that war is happening, is a possibility, is a very strong possibility. And we're going to get to some other quotes that walk through this a little bit more. But what does that mean? And going back to the Navy and you bringing up trade routes, like walk through like what your thoughts are on it, what your thoughts are about what that would mean exactly. Going to war with them, why the Navy is important in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's, these are important things that really impact us daily, right? I mean, you and I work in the technology space, um, and so I'll touch on this later, but I mean, um, we all know what these NVIDIA GPUs can do and whatnot. Of course, those are all manufactured and designed in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Um, and she is, the leader of China, is insistent that that will be, governed by mainland China, by the CCP and whatnot. And he wants that done by 2027. So he's preparing to do that by any means he sees fit, right? And it's interesting because that's definitely, a telegraphed offensive position. And, one thing I often think about is, if you really read history, we were dragged into World War II, and had to ramp up manufacturing. And I know we're going to talk about manufacturing later, but China has focused on this objective for the last 25 years, and their navy is now larger than our navy in terms of number of craft. But back to your question, I think the point is, we would like to see free and open trade. We've seen everybody benefit from that around the world. Um, we were the final vote, in the World Trade Organization during the Clinton administration, allowing China in, and they've taken full advantage of that. And what they've done with that offer, good faith offer on our part, is they've decided to build the largest military in the world. It is larger than our military, not just the surface ships, but they certainly have more people. So it's just something for us to take note of, and I think IndoPac is our again, it's our front line, and I think the first move for us is always going to be diplomacy, right? How can we avoid this conflict? And I think our position has always been one of defensive, meaning we're going to be prepared. We're going to be so prepared that they're not going to want to do it. There certainly is no threat to China, right? They're building this force, and yet nobody's threatening them. It's an interesting, construct when you really think about it, right? I mean, and again, compare and contrast NATO, who, we talk about, they don't spend, the agreement says they're supposed to spend 2%, and most of them are kind of hedging on that, I'll say. I don't want to say the word cheating, but, they don't want to spend the 2%. Why? Because it's working really great for them right now that, we're keeping the world safe. And then you contrast China, who's deciding to spend, most of their GDP to create this military, right? I mean, it's just a different mindset.
Yeah, that's in some of the talks they talked about our partners out there, and I think you always wonder who the bad guys and the good guys are, right? But the quantity of other countries who are hoping for us to be there, be in that region, giving us military bases, being able to place our troops in their countries, helping us be part of a partner system military in that area. The number of countries that are doing that is vast, almost 100%. And it puts China in this island of themselves. And China's, they have this very large navy, and they're using it. They're capturing a lot of the fishing areas right now from some of these countries, and some of these countries are kind of annoyed. They're like, no, I want my autonomy as well. I
Right.
can't take care of myself. USA, please come help. Yes, I will participate in this way. Um, so absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot there.
Yeah. Yeah, they've become a
Um,
bully, whether it's the Philippines or Vietnam or Singapore, at this point they're being seen as a bully.
what let's you kind of allude to it. So Carla, can we go to video, the fourth video? Let's walk through that one because Frank, you talked through a little bit about the size of their navy and you talked a little bit about manufacturing. I think it's a good segue to get into those things about how we
Sure.
interact with China. So the Project 33 video specifically. And as she gets ready, oh, we're goody. Good, awesome. Can you play that?
I can't speak for the entire military, but I can tell you that our Navy and Marine Corps team is pursuing a variety of initiatives to get at these challenges. And I'm going to give you some examples as we move on. Back in September, our Chief of Naval Operations unveiled a new initiative called Project 33. That's part of our CNO's Navigation Plan 2024. And Project 33 set a series of targets for strategically meaningful gains in the fastest possible time frame, leveraging resources that we have today. One of those 7 targets is rapidly scaling and integrating robotic and autonomous systems across the fleet by 2027, and we're making meaningful progress towards that goal. We're already doing it in several niche areas, but the CNO's vision is that we're building this into every domain and every warfighting regime. In the end, the approach will not replace our legacy capabilities, but enhance them with a hybrid fleet at significantly lower cost than traditional naval vessel construction.
All right. Project 33 just announced September. I looked this up. I had not known about this until I looked at this conference. But that's the Vice Admiral again. He talked about our adversary and he talked about mainly 2 major projects that are happening. Our abilities to connect our partners and this Project 33. Uh, Frank, what are your thoughts on Project 33? Why is it important? What is the main role of it? What is this Project 33?
Yeah, Nathan, it's important. Again, we get, again, you and I are in technology, we're in software, so we often talk about constructs like hybrid cloud. This is a similar construct, but in the sense that, we've got this, again, massive Navy with surface ships and submarines and it's really amazing what we've done, with the Navy itself. But we are recognizing, and there are great examples of this, right? That there's just so much opportunity in robotics, in autonomous vehicles, and of course, the Navy wants to have both autonomous subs as well as surface ships. And we've also found that, obviously it keeps our personnel out of harm's way and can be really disruptive to other afloat organizations, whether it's a scenario where you want to just do some surveillance, right? You don't have to put somebody in harm's way. There can be cameras and sensors and everything else on an autonomous either subsurface or surface vehicle, and it allows you to, obtain surveillance that you would otherwise had to have deployed people, and put them in harm's way for. So there's a lot of it. The same thing with demolition and things that our frogmen, were always trained to do that are very dangerous. Again, these autonomous vehicles can go and engage in those capabilities and do maintenance below the surface, below the waterline. pretty incredible. Or if there's a mining, a waterway that has mines, likewise, they can be deployed to either collect the mines safely or actually explode them. A lot of things. It's almost limitless when you think about it.
I read how, just to be honest, China has a massive navy compared to ours. They just do. Now, you brought up, which I think is a great point, which is we have a lot of battleships. They have a lot of other things that are just, smaller, but we're seeing in the Ukraine war the value of drones, a very, very small airplane that is wreaking havoc in a lot of ways. Uh, why not in the ocean as well, having the same kind of experience? Now,
Right.
I'm kind of assuming here, but I'm guessing that's where they're coming from on this. And I think your usages of it are pretty valuable there. The numbers I saw, and they're all hypothetical, but this is going to be a massive program requiring a lot of manufacturing. Let's talk about manufacturing and data in this sense. I'll share one of my stories I have. I worked with a group once that were trying to do just-in-time manufacturing. Their idea was this was specifically for the military, and the military will have a need. Today there's going to have a need, and tomorrow they're going to have a need. There's going to be something that breaks, and they're going to need something fixed very quickly, right? And so their concept is to take that assembly line and be able to pivot it overnight to make another product as fast as you can, like make that change.
Mhm.
To do that, as they were walking through the process, do it, and you could instantly see the value of that, right? Like we are becoming a just-in-time industry right now. I go and I buy stuff online and I expect it at my door in 2 days, and it's the craziest stuff that I would never have found in my town ever before, right? We expect that at this point. There's no reason for the military to not expect that. If a part breaks, they expect within a few days to be able to have something, and we have the technology to do that. To do that, though, requires a lot of synergy of products. Synergy of products requires data. And this is where we come in, where being able to have those products make sure that when they pivot to product B on a Tuesday and then product C on a Wednesday, that all of these systems have transitioned correctly, that they are working correctly, that the health and status of them, that they're feeding the data between systems. Obviously, that's an incredibly and vital part of this. Otherwise, because back in the day, you would have a human go to that machine and you turn it on and you make them do 3 use cases of that machine and you watch it visually. You can't do that every single night. You just can't. You need that data to be able to grab that data. And from that manufacturing perspective, that's where I see the value of data in allowing such a just-in-time type manufacturing right there. I don't know if you have any thoughts
I
on
mean,
that.
data is the key. And it's amazing because we're 30 minutes in here, and that was really the theme of IndoPac TechNet, right? Is you know one of the panelists I remember for the one that Susan Lawrence was leading, talked about data is like water essentially, and you have to be able to control it, but you also have to realize there are different types of data, right? The analogy they used was, you use the garden hose to wash your car, but you use a different type of water to baptize your child, and yet a different type of water, such as Fiji water, the artisan water, if you will. And they're all water, but they're different types. And the same with data. When it relates to manufacturing, you know, uh, it just shows the importance of, the last piece of Project 33. They talk about automation, they talk about robotics, but information dominance is the thread throughout all of this. And the data is that foundational element, if you will, water molecule, if you will, for information dominance. And again, reverting back to these, different robots that are above and below the surface line of the water and in the air, perhaps in space, everywhere. They're all throwing off data. They're all connected to a network. So understanding that, being able to manage that in real time, the whole idea of something delivered to your door all the way from manufacturing point is really extraordinary when you think about it. Whether it's this time of year, here we are, it's, the end of October, everything is cycled up for, the end of the year, the Christmas season, and all these kind of things that happen. And those supply chains just have to be ready. And nowadays, they are absolutely, monitored end to end. When something goes wrong, if you've ever seen, for example, the, inside of the Tesla factories, everything is ordered and everything is done sort of just in time. And in order to do that, you've got to have it basically all the way back through your suppliers, and everything is monitored with, the data is monitored at every second.
Yeah, cognizant of time, Carla, can we do the 5th video? This is Lieutenant General Lenderman. It's kind of the same topic where, again, data, this is where we connect the dot of CJADC2. Again, the opening keynote, he talked about Project 33 and he talked about CJADC2, what is CJADC2? It's connecting the dots of a lot of organizations together. They added the C. It used to be JADC2 when it was just the United States. They combined the C for combined to add all of our partner countries as well. And this is Lieutenant General Lenderman. She is talking about a huge Air Force exercise that we are going to do this year. Can you play it?
These events not only highlight the strength of our joint force, but they also show how our allies and partners are increasingly collaborating and learning from each other and the U.S. So when I think about these 3 asymmetric advantages, it's not hard to see why concepts like agile combat employment and bomber task force deployments are employed in the Pacific today. Like our forefathers, we're establishing operating capabilities at World War II airfields in the second island chain. We're launching bomber missions out of Guam, Australia, and Diego Garcia. We're exercising from austere as well as fixed base locations throughout the region, and we're doing it with our joint force and allies and partners, and often under the leadership of junior officers and NCOs. And many of these concepts will come together under one large exercise next summer here in the Pacific. Resolute Force Pacific, or REFORPAC, is a full-scale, large force exercise similar to the old days of Reforger. This exercise will embrace IndoPACOM's campaign plans, Air Mobility Command's Mobility Guardian, Air Combat Command's Bamboo Eagle series, and numerous other exercises across the Pacific to integrate sister services, allies, and partner nations.
All right, she said an earlier point, 33 partner nations are going to be working together for that. And I think going back to the quantity of allies we have in that area, it showcases that very well. She talked about how the Philippines, to do this, and last year as well, they flew outside of Philippine airspace for the first time since World War II. So, stuff is happening. Stuff is happening right now. I want to talk about MPE with this one, where connecting the dots of all those organizations to all those US organizations, as well as all those partner organizations together. MPE is a huge part of this, and it was discussed many times throughout. It's thoughts on MPE, thoughts on, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on MPE? I don't know if you can explain it. I can definitely. We haven't talked through it.
Why don't you start with explaining it a little bit, if you don't mind, and then I'll talk. a
Yeah,
little
so right now, if we wanted to share anything outside of the classic unclassified stuff, if we wanted to share anything to Australia, to Japan, to Korea, to any of these people, it's a stovepipe network that is managed by one single organization. So we have like, say there's these 33 partner countries. We have 33 networks on secret. We have 33 networks on top secret. We have 33 networks on this random pink flamingo project that's on secret that we don't want anyone else on secret to have, right? It's this massive spaghetti of networks that exists. And the idea with MPE is we want a single network with really good RBAC, like really, really, really good RBAC. We want Korea and Japan and Australia all on this network. And we don't want them to worry about what each other are sharing. We want to share what we want to share to the Australians, which is going to be different from the Philippines. We want to be able to, which is different than this organization in the Philippines. So incredible role-based access in this network. So, obviously, you can imagine it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. MPE, there are two big areas that are being pushed right now. So one is in Europe, I think it's AFRICOM, if I remember correctly, and the other one is in Hawaii, that are being pushed. And they originally were doing it just to do role-based access, but then this new cool thing called zero trust came out, and they're like, well, we're going to make this into a zero trust because it makes perfect sense. Nothing in this network should be trusted ever on its own. Let's do true zero trust in it. So it's a lot, a project, but you can imagine, again, with this concern of China, the importance of being ready for exercises like one that she just brought up, and how MPE will be able to assist this. And again, back to data, that's a lot of stuff happening. You want to make sure that it is working as you think it's working, that you are logging it and making sure that the data that you think is going from X to Y is actually going to X to Y and not going anywhere else but X to Y. All of those things are very important with the MPE perspective.
Yeah, no, this is a really important topic too. And again, we can draw the relationship back to our NATO partners and allies that we've deployed into the Middle East with, because during those conflicts, during those wars, we've had scenarios where we've held data pretty tightly, and that can produce some angst, some even distrust among our allies. And so this concept of MPE really came about, from that. And again, one of my favorite clips, and it's too long for us to show, so we decided not to show it here, but was the panel, and they talked about Voltus, which is the data strategy what they published in 2020. And it really, that's got to do with, the data has to be visible, it has to be accessible, understandable, linked, trusted, interoperable, and secure. Well, this secure piece, has always been the barrier. Data, has to be in the battlefield, or the battle space has got to be near real time, right? And they talked about that on several of the breakout sessions. If it's targeting or whatever, it's got to be near real time. So we've created this MPE construct so that we can, in fact, share data that we have, or an ally could likewise share with us within this construct. So I think it's really key to building the trust, given that we will have all these autonomous capabilities, and so will our allies, right? So the data sharing in real time, it's just going to be massive amounts of data. And to have these separate networks where only certain people have access can create a lot of angst. It really can. So I think MPE is a really important element, and I'm sure that's going to be something that's tested in this next exercise in 2025.
Yeah, 100%. Like a lot of those CJAD C2 concepts. I'm going to show one more video, Carla. I know we're out of time, and we're not going to talk about it, but I think it's just a really valuable one. It's our AI versus China's AI, and there's some good stats on it. When I think of us and our concerns with China, I think of AI, and I struggle getting out of this video without actually just acknowledging their prowess in it. So that would be, Carla, it would be number 2, video number 2. We'll share it, and then maybe we'll answer some questions about it afterwards.
Cool. As a follow-on to the 13th five-year plan issued by the Chinese State Council after 2016, the State Council in 2017 announced the Next Generation Artificial Intelligence Development Plan. A plan calls for China to be the preeminent innovation center for AI by 2030. Additionally, under this plan, China's AI theory, technology, applications will all reach world-leading levels. Right, so that's a proclamation. Chinese political and technical leaders have also stated, and I'll use quotes, AI is a, quote, new focus of international competition, end quote. Quote, AI is the main battlefield between China and the US. In terms of funding, China still trails US and private AI investment. Various sources indicate the US is behind us by about an order of magnitude as of 2023. And these numbers vary, but it's about $70 billion of private investment in the United States and about $7 billion of private investment in China. We found reporting that said they have achieved $980 billion in these funds as of this year. The Chinese index also stated that in 2023, China led the world in AI research publications, publishing about 37% of all of them. The US came in second at about 23%.
All right, a lot there, but that's their goal, to be the leaders in AI. But they're not yet. They are slightly better in the quantity of publications that they give. They're putting a lot of money from public sector into it, but in the public sector, but in the commercial sector, we are putting a magnitude more money into it. So it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective of where
It
we're at
is,
this.
and we use dollars to measure things, but there's not always parity in how far that goes, right? So, even though we've got a 10x factor there, they may be doing a lot more with their 7 billion. So you always have to be aware of that and how to handicap that. So
anyway, let's bring it up for questions. Carla, and feel free anyone to share, to bring up a question. We love to answer any questions, but yeah. Carla, what do we have?
We get a question, and it's how can advanced data analysis and observability tools like those from Elastic and ElastiFlow enhance the DoD's cyber readiness and response to evolving threats?
Frank, you want to start?
Sure. It's really, again, it's a challenge. All of these initiatives that we've discussed today, again, are so dependent on data, and likewise on networks, which allow you to move that data. And we also talked and touched on sort of the sharing of these networks with allies. And so, ultimately, ElastiFlow is focused on being the best of breed in collecting data across the network and ensuring that data can be contextualized and understood. Well, we do that and send it over to Elastic so it can be understood and analyzed. And so that's kind of our focus area. And of course, Elastic is best in breed in the analyzation of that data.
Yeah, I think adding to that, from an Elastic perspective, we purposely went through a lot of projects, and some of these off the top of their head don't seem data centric at all. I mean, we're talking about exercises of aircraft, we're talking about rating new ships. But I think that's why we're a good source to have this discussion, because everything needs data. Like, it doesn't really matter where it's coming from. The more we are getting stuff automated, the more that we have more than just a single ship out there that a single human can monitor. We need data to assess the health of it, to assess the status, the location, to be able to connect the dots of where everything is located in a theater. So yeah, bringing that data together to help you know what is best to do, for sure.
Right. And training AI models, right, takes
Oh yeah.
quality data, right? The fidelity of the data to train the AI. We've all heard about hallucination and things of that nature. That's just like it was back in the programming days, a bad code in, bad results out, it's the same, right? So you've really got to focus on the fidelity of the data, make sure you can capture all of the data, because you don't want to miss things as you're training these AI models. It's important to be inclusive and complete.
Awesome. Carla, do we have any others?
I have one more, and we
Okay.
can wrap up afterwards. So with automation playing a growing role in defense, how do you see it impacting the balance between operational efficiency and cybersecurity within DoD networks?
Mhm. Um, I laugh because I'm thinking of a specific story I heard just last week, how uh, there the growth in the IT oftentimes forgets security. It just does. And so they're for instance, in the container world, in the DevOps world, so few applications were built to assure connections between containers, TLS connections, that uh, there are third-party products whose full and complete purpose is to fix that gap because no one else was doing, none of the apps are actually building it. So it's a thing, right? Like, security is often forgotten until it's needed, and then you have to back in and build it. Um, and so it's it's always a concern. And I don't know if I'm really specifically answering the question, other than it's always a concern. And I don't want to answer data again, but that's what's in my head. Like, the more we understand what holes might exist, the better to fix them with. So, Frank, you have any thoughts?
Well, I think, operational efficiency is something that every organization really strives for. Um, and, and again, that's got to do with personnel and training and culture and process. Um, at the end of the day, you have to bring those things together, so that you're also getting that outcome, because you can be efficient. And again, you look at sort of like the just-in-time initiatives, you know, affecting the lean manufacturing capabilities that we've had with, uh, all the supply chains and whatnot. Essentially, if you can't tune that perfectly, you get big hiccups. And we have great examples of those, by adding regulations to things and, unintended consequences from those, or breaking down those barriers, where you can accelerate uh, the outcome, if you will. But the process is important. You just have to make sure you're able to tune it. And again, the data does help you do that.
All right.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you so much, Nathan. We are at time, and it's time to wrap up. I did want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the future of DoD Cyber. We really hope you found the insights and conversation valuable. And a quick reminder, the recording of this session, along with Frank and Nathan's information, will be shared via email. In case you guys want to continue the discussion or have any additional questions, we truly appreciate your participation and engagement. And please make sure to complete the survey at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great talking. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.